Live from the Panera Studios, it's the Reading with Robin show, brought to you each week by my friends at Panera Bread, where it's food as it should be. It's where I go to begin my day. There's nothing like that first cup of coffee in the morning. It's also where I go to meet up with friends, and sometimes I even run into a book club. Panera is the perfect place to host a meeting. Everyone's happy with their extensive menu, from the delicious soups and salads to the sandwiches and flatbreads. And don't forget the takeout. The summer months are coming, and who wants to cook? You can order ahead, and your dinner will be waiting for you. That's all at your local Panera Bread. And now, enjoy the show.
Janet Benton began writing early and has worked hard to give books a central place in her life, and her book has got a central place now in mine. She grew up in a small town in Connecticut, skipped 8th grade to travel the world with her working artist mother, and the mother-child love is so prevalent in Lilli de Jong that this all makes so much sense, and I have so many things to chat with her about. She holds an MFA in English fiction writing from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst and a BA in religious studies from Oberlin College. After working at magazines, newspapers, and publishers and teaching writing at 4 universities, she began the Word Studio to offer workshops and mentoring to writers. She's also a mother, wife, and singer. Will you sing on my show, Janet? Welcome to Reading with Robin. Debut extraordinaire alert. Lilli de Jong is out in the world. Welcome, Janet Benton.
Thank you so much, Robin.
I've never had anybody. You're welcome. Sing on my show, but you know. Also, Janet will be appearing at Point Street Reading Series on Tuesday, July 18th. Coming up, I am very excited, and we do happen to have a fabulous stage and microphone, so we'll see what I can work in. We've had some musical performans in the past.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'll keep that in mind.
No pressure. You can
I'll
find
have to
her.
Think of an appropriate jazz standard for the book. Yeah.
I think that would be so cool.
Yeah.
And you can find her at janetbentonauthor.com, and you're on Twitter and Instagram and all those places, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I figured.
Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook, of course, and I am thrilled to have you on. Janet and I had a lovely chat. You would have all enjoyed it so much, but this is the part we're sharing. This book came to me, I was saying to you, I think in the winter. When I look at this, I remember reading it like just, cuddling up on a cold night, sort of that kind of a read, which is the coziest of all. Did a bit of rereading in preparation because it was so long ago. Lilli de Jong is somebody that will stay with me, like one of those, when we were talking about classics. This is one of those books that does not blend, does not just sort of get filed along it was a nice read. This is a beautifully done, gorgeous novel. It's memorable, and I am thrilled to share it with the Reading with Robin audience. Thank you so much for bringing such joy, because there's nothing like a wonderful book. You're welcome. So you skipped 8th grade to travel with your mother. How does that inform your writing and your world and everything? What an amazing experience.
Well, thank you for asking that question. I've never been asked that before. I think what it did for me was make me understand that nothing I thought was just, when you haven't traveled, you just think the world that you live in is just the way the world is. And I think going to places like India and Korea and Nigeria, et cetera, showed me that really very little of what I took for granted was just the way that human life is. These are all very culturally determined aspects of life. I think that has helped me be able to be more aware of the nature of mothering, for instance, in this society. So, it doesn't have to be this hard. It doesn't have to be that mothers are, frequently, for instance, made fun of. Like, oh, of course she thinks that she's your mother, or, well, she's just your mom, or, women who are mothers are paid considerably less than other women. That habit of mind of knowing that what is not the only way that things can be really informed the book a lot.
There's so many perspectives in this book, and the writing is gorgeous. The notebook keeping is something that really spoke to me, the way the book is broken down into the notebooks. I'm guessing are you a journal keeper? You know?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
And that's something, again, that goes back to my mom, which she began keeping a diary when I was a young child, and I was aware of that. And at a certain point, I mean, I wasn't aware of it when I was very young, but I think I became aware of it maybe when I was around 8 or 9. And when I was 10, I made my own diary for the first time. I took some cardboard and some paper and some cloth and, cut them up and stapled them and glued them together, and I had my first diary.
That's when publishing was simple, Janet.
Yeah, right.
Voila, it's all there.
It's a book.
The best, I remember like taking those pages, folding them, and sort of trying to get the staple in the middle, and then you've got the beginnings of a book. Did you know where your mom kept the diary, or just fascinated with the fact that she kept one?
No, I did. It was in her night table. A few times at a certain point in my life, I did read it, but first of all, her handwriting is appallingly bad. And secondly, I wasn't really reading it to find out what she thought. I was looking for my name. I wanted to know I wanted to know that she was thinking about me and what she was thinking about me. I guess it's kind of like if you were reading like the diary of a boyfriend that you were insecure about, or even who you just loved so much, you'd want to know, what did they say about me?
Did you sneak?
I did, a couple times. Yeah. Yep. And she has read my diary a couple times, too, over the decades. She has confessed to me, so yeah.
The diary is just a fascinating thing. I mean, just so much of journaling and I was just having this conversation with Courtney Sullivan. We were talking about Saints for All Occasions. There was a piece in that book. And this idea of what we keep, are they for ourselves? Will we ever reread them? What if someone were to find them? Do we destroy them? So your mom read yours through did you know she had done that?
Not until
you said there was
quite
confessing.
A bit later. Just a few times, yeah. But, I have 2 trunks full of diaries. And,
wow.
Just historically speaking, diaries have been very important for women. I mean, they have been these secret deposits of the things that we can't admit or share. And so I partly wrote this book in diary form for that reason. I also did because it's a way of getting really close to a character. And for me, the joy of reading is to be really inside the mind of a character. I liked that. And also the writing itself helps her stay alive.
It is like the sustenance. It's sort of like nursing the baby. It's just an amazing thing. And so maybe that's one of the things, I know that's one of the things that I so connected to as a journal keeper and a lover of writing and the word and innermost thoughts. And that is the connection really to Lilli, is really feeling like she's just, the whole book has her fingerprints all over it. So wait, so you have, I'm back to these trunks. I'm like visioning. So you have 2 trunks full of your diaries.
I do.
You should schlep them around to events and just like not let anybody look in them, but know that you have 2 trunks.
That would be funny. They each weigh probably about 75 pounds.
I did mean schlep.
I could bring pictures of them,
Yes, absolutely. Take pictures. People love a visual. I know.
That's
I'm just getting all of these ideas because there is the written word just endures. And do you have plans for? I mean, I have my diaries as well. I have poked through them through the years. But the idea of confessing that I remember my sister. We had locks on them, but you could open that with a bobby pin.
Yeah.
And we had that conversation not so long ago because I knew she was in there. And then I don't know, you'd hide them, and it becomes like this game.
Or you put a piece of hair in the front so that if it was gone, you'd know somebody went in the book. Yep, I remember that.
Exactly. And you wonder sometimes with the writing, it's for the writer, obviously, but is there sometimes a sense of getting out that which you hope can be unearthed, or is it just private? There's so much that goes along with all of this.
Yes, and I think that one piece about keeping a diary that I really felt was another reason to put this book in that form is that the diary is Lilli's friend. It's her best friend. I think that there are periods in every diary keeper's life where that is the case, and also because she could refer to the diary as her friend, and I felt in a way like that allowed her to be speaking directly to the reader as a friend. I wanted to invite the reader into her world as someone who, by reading, was keeping her going. And in fact, a friend said, she usually goes to bed at 9 p.m. just religiously, and she stayed up till 1:30 to finish the book because she felt that Lilli needed her.
I can
Couldn't
understand
stop.
that.
Yeah.
No, I could totally understand that because the connection to, and we'll talk about a little bit about what the book's about. I don't ever give away spoilers on Reading with Robin, and we are speaking about Lilli de Jong, the brand new novel and the debut novel of Janet Benton, who will be in Rhode Island at Point Street Reading Series on Tuesday, July 18th, and I cannot wait not to rush the summer. This is a book that was very hard to put down, but you want to savor it, at the same time. So there's like that push and pull of, I want to leave some, I want to have something to come back to. So talk about Lilli and her story. What should the reader know when diving in?
So Lilli is, at the beginning of the book, 23. She is, the novel is set in the year 1883. She is from a neighborhood in Philadelphia called Germantown, which was founded by Quakers, and she is from an old Quaker family in that neighborhood, and she's a teacher at Meeting House School, and some things happen in her life that kind of end up leaving her rudderless, as she puts it, and she ends up pregnant out of wedlock, giving birth at a charity for unwed mothers based on an actual charity that I studied the records of. And she has to decide whether or not she's going to keep her baby. It's very much expected that women in her situation will give up their baby. So the story of her choice and the journey that results is what the book consists of.
Such a journey, and so much, can't help thinking about times, so long ago, yet some of it doesn't really feel so long ago, how women were treated, this never-ending search for what could have been or what once was, it's just the guilt and the shame, and reading Lilli's burning desire for this connection and always feeling this connection, because once you're a mother. When she goes to this charity, this unwed mothers, whatever, you had done the research for this one that you modeled it after, but to remember how young these women are, the caretakers who want to sort of teach them a lesson. I don't know, some of them are kinder than others and have their own stories, but of course these young women only know the side that they're sort of seeing of these matrons who are sort of in charge and having this puritanical sense of what these women have, I don't know, what they're going through or what circumstances brought them and what their connection is to their own families. So much is there, but at the very heart of it is a young woman about to have a child and what's going to become of them and what are their options, and how much trust you have to place in these seemingly, responsible people the woman actually who started this home is doing it really to honor her sister's memory, right? Was that what? Yeah. And was that the part of the story?
It wasn't.
No, you made that up.
I did make that up. Yeah. The actual charity was started, at least so the story goes that I read, by two doctors who had been working at the almshouse where normally these unfortunate young women would be sent, and the doctors were very upset that they were surrounded by, fornication and drinking and filth, and that these young women giving birth would save her in every way in a place that was designed just for them.
Well, that's the thing, too. I mean, how many options really were open to these women?
There were very few places that would admit such a woman. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they're just at the most vulnerable of all times. Yes, exactly. And so just reading about, and that was what kept going through my mind of how young they were and the connections that the women would form with each other. And each time someone would go and have their baby, and they would sort of hear, certainly what was going on and visiting afterwards. And then also young mothers that were then required to be a wet nurse on top of that for somebody else's child. Was that also part of the research and what went on?
Yes.
Unless it was necessary, but just also to sort of not punish them, but like this is what's needed.
And one of the facts that underlies the novel that I learned when I was nursing my own newborn, which inspired me to write the novel, was that there was no safe substitute for a mother's milk prior to the pasteurization of cow's milk, which if I remember correctly, began in the maybe late 1880s, but wasn't widespread until the maybe second decade of the 20th century. And the same with refrigeration. So cow's milk was, doctors described it as filthy, laden with diseases like tuberculosis and cholera, and you couldn't give a baby cow's milk. I mean, some doctors had, you would boil it and then you would add this and that. It was dangerous. So that's one of the reasons that they made unwed mothers nurse other people's babies, because otherwise those babies would have died. So what shocked me was just how many babies, millions I'm sure, of babies throughout European and American history, and perhaps in certainly in some other cultures too, they were separated from their mothers due to prejudice against women who had gotten pregnant without the, seal of approval of a man.
Well, because of course that would alter your milk tremendously if the seal was not there.
Right.
Right.
And then they were separated from their children because of the prejudice, and then those children died, and the mothers carried around these wounds for their whole lives.
Forever.
Just terribly sad.
And and due to sometimes circumstances that, all sorts of things, all sorts of times.
Right,
I mean,
absolutely, right. I mean, there was, you could be raped, you could be abused by incest, you could have been tricked, or you could have, just been unlucky. I mean, some people had sex and didn't get pregnant,
So was Lilli tricked, unlucky, or, well, we find out. We're not going to say. And also in this book, the author's note really at the end was, it was really gorgeous. It was its own story, really, and I'm so glad that you included that. It was, it's something that I really enjoy when a book is so close to my heart after reading it. And Lilli de Jong is out. When did it come out? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, May 16th.
Okay, May 16th, and it is gorgeous, and it is, if you're looking for a book club pick, if you're looking for an awesome book, this is the one to pick, but especially book clubs will have so much to talk about. There are so many topics to pull from this, and so many gorgeous lines that I have dog-eared, and I have my galley, so this is, you will see it when you come here to Point Street. It is well-loved, and talking also about how Lilli finds out about her own mother's connection through her mother's writing, and she connects to her mother through her writing, and she's also writing about that. But there's a letter that her mother has left for her that was really, I definitely teared up reading this letter that Lilli received, luckily gets her hands on, and she loses her mother early on in the story, and that's not a spoiler.
No.
And drives certainly a great deal of the book because she leaves her family, right? And
I felt, I felt badly about that for when I was first writing the book, like I had to kill off the mother. And then I read this article about fairy tales that made the point that, the journey has to begin with some kind of abandonment. Otherwise, there is no journey for a young person, right? They have to lose protection in order to go up and have their journey to some degree.
No, so you had to do it.
Yeah.
And as a writer and as a reader, you knew that you had no choice but to off the mother.
Yep.
And what else are you going to do?
Right.
It's true. And
that's why the stepmother is not a friendly character, too, because if she had been, then again, there'd be no problem, right?
Exactly. Or as we say in this family, then it wouldn't be a movie. What are you going to do, right?
Right.
And the things that Lilli does in this book that she has to do, and just the instinct to survive and this passion for her child. Did you ever think at any point where you were writing this, what will she not do? Is there anything she will not do for Charlotte?
Well, that was, that I think is one of the questions in the book, is what will she have to do in order to be able to keep her child? And it was important to me that she not be perfect, but also that she not be utterly tragic. I have a strong feeling that there are plenty of books out there about women getting killed, murdered, and otherwise completely abused. I have personally had my fill of such stories.
Care to throw a title our way, Janet, or no?
No, because individually each book could be something that might be quite have its merits. There are reasons, there are reasons that women get killed in books that are not gratuitous, but we seem to have a fascination both in TV, movies, in TV and movies, and as well in books with terrible things happening to women. I think it's like repeating the injury over and over and over again, and it's one of the ways that I think we become dead to the suffering of women.
Yeah.
And one of the purposes of my book is to renew our understanding of the suffering of mothers and how much of it is really unnecessary and that mothers need more support
from each other and more understanding.
And from society.
And that's the thing that really does endure, and which is what we're talking about. So this book takes place 140 years ago or so.
Yeah, almost, yep.
So much has changed and much it really hasn't. And the hope for Lilli and future Lillies and Charlotte's offspring and generations to come would be that there would be change and more understanding. And as much as these topics are out there and we talk about them, really changing the culture takes time, I guess. And we've obviously come a far way, but sometimes, and not in all, like you say, we said at the beginning of this with your travel informing your perception of the world, and it's not, we have a long way to go in all cultures, and it's not just what's going on here, and what's going on here isn't always so pretty either. So,
no, right. This is one of the few countries in the world that does not have any paternal or maternal leave for, and that's, when you have an infant and you see how helpless that infant is, and you think that, okay, this is our private disaster, why should this be our private financial disaster to raise the next generation?
Right?
You judge a culture by how it treats its most vulnerable, and ethically. And I think we have a long way to go.
We do have a long way to go, and I think always it starts with conversation, and in storytelling, that becomes sometimes a really doable way to bring up topics that otherwise might seem tricky. And so,
I agree. It's a way of getting into people's hearts with a full experience. It's not just words. It's an experience. It's a lived experience.
And there's so many things when reading this book that I would pull topics to talk about and experiences to share. And one of them that I thought, too, was Lilli's talking about her mother's letter and wondering about, because sometimes people sort of, you sort of see your parents stuck in this role as parents and forgetting that they had lives before. And Lilli's sort of wondering about secrets and about what her mother's marriage was like. And what was at the center, and did she writes here, did she go to the grave with painful secrets? Must every woman, will I? You can spend hours discussing this with other women.
Yes, and absolutely, I agree. And sometimes it's better to keep something secret because you know that society will not understand, or someone you speak to will not understand. And, I think of another book about an unwed mother, Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. Where she is raped, gets pregnant, gives up, or her baby dies. She then meets the love of her life, this man named Angel, and they are going to marry, and she's like, I've got to tell him. So finally, the night before their wedding, she writes a letter, slips it under the door of the place he's staying. It goes under the rug. He never sees it. They marry. She goes back and sees that it's under the rug. She gives it to him, and he leaves me.
Yeah, didn't anyone tell her to leave things under the rug? Things swept under the rug? Something about sleeping dogs and no lying? I mean, come on.
Right. So
Dr. Laura would even tell you that.
Yeah. So, on the other hand, like one of the things that Lilli considers is, if I give up this baby, go home and pretend this never happened, there's a lie. I think she says, like a layer of fat spread beneath my skin. Everything she does, every relationship she has where she doesn't share this is to some degree fraudulent, and she can never truly be known. And, I did a lot of reading about women who give up babies, or young girls, teenagers who give up babies, and what the enduring effects are for them. And it doesn't go away.
No, it's got to always be there lurking in some way. And as far as secrets go, depending on if they're written down, if they're in those trunks that you're hauling around, how secret are they? I mean, that becomes like the ultimate, secrets can be crippling and free, or are they freeing, or I don't know. It's very tricky, and so hindsight, of course, it's crystal clear. But I fell in love with Lilli and her story, the families that she encounters, the people that she connects with, and really her sense of humor comes through.
Oh, good.
That's one of the things in reading her journals, part of her writing of her journals and keeping of the notebooks. I found her very funny.
I'm glad.
In certain ways. Okay, so that I was supposed to see that. Good.
Yes,
I was like, sometimes it's just my dark sense of humor, but I was
Yeah.
like, I would really want to know her. I don't know, and I hardly ever ask this question, but if it were a movie, who would you sort of see playing Lilli? Because that would be, what a role that would be.
Yeah, it would, and I hope that there will be an actress brave enough to produce it. Really,
Yeah,
I
like
think that
who
would be ideal.
Right?
I will admit that I don't watch much TV, and since having a child 14 years ago, have probably seen about 5 movies, maybe 10 movies a year at the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not, unfortunately, as well versed as I should be. I did spend actually about a 2-day period looking up actresses and producers and directors to give to the agency that represents me, thinking that then they would think about approaching these people, and they don't, because that's not how they work. But so there definitely were names on that list that of a bunch of actresses who I thought would do an amazing job.
Because it would be an amazing role. Plus, I love a period piece, and this is, I could just see the streets of, Philadelphia, but like Germantown and 1880s.
And Germantown is such a cool neighborhood still. It has so many old buildings. There are streets where all the buildings are from the period.
Oh wow,
so, yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
The one thing that my husband has joked about is that breastfeeding on screen is perhaps the last taboo. So,
I was just, before you said that, Janet, I was thinking all the boobage really in this, because there's just this constantly letting down of milk, and you'd go through so much wardrobe.
Yes, well, and one of the, so, as he said, like there's that movie, is it Silence of the Lambs, where the man makes people's skin into lampshades, and there's that horrifying movie Boxing Helena, I think it was called, from a while
I didn't
back.
see that, and I did see Silence of the Lambs, but barely through my fingers.
I mean, you can do anything, but you can't breastfeed.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
it is really amazing.
So I do think someone should take it on for that reason alone. Also, a recent reviewer wrote that her question was, is it radical to write about breastfeeding?
Which is crazy to even think of that.
And she was like, well, apparently it is, because, the
right.
Pope has to give special permission to a woman to, nurse her baby who's about to be baptized.
I did not know that.
Well, I mean, the Pope recently said it is fine for a woman to breastfeed in a church. Anyway,
I can't speak to that, but okay.
Yeah. But no, it's amazing how this fundamental and beautiful act that keeps babies alive is somehow still taboo. It's surprising.
Well, because men have sexualized it in so much of a way.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's a way of making and it's a way of making women have to stay in the house.
Exactly, with their boobs. And I'm speaking with Janet Benton, and we are talking about her gorgeous debut novel, Lilli de Jong, or you can say De Jong. Janet has given you permission, but because in my head it was De Jong the whole time, but it is Lilli de Jong. That is this. I am so excited to share this with Reading with Robin audience, and you can find Janet at janetbentonauthor.com, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and at Point Street Reading Series in Providence on July 18th. But go to her website, janetbentonauthor.com, and you can find out all of the events, because you've got a lot of fun stuff going on. I see you'll be in Philly, the library, and all sorts of, you've got lots of stuff going on.
My home state. Yep.
Home state of Connecticut. Shout out for Connecticut.
Yep.
And
Massachusetts.
Yes. I love Broadside. Yes, you'll be in Northampton, and you will be in Florence, Massachusetts, and with my friend Christina Baker Klein in Montclair. Bethany Beach Books, I love her, and Bethany Beach, all sorts of great.
And with Pam Jenoff at Inkwood Books in New Jersey. Yep.
Yay. Oh, that'll be fun. When I see these events, when I'm on somebody's events page, I always think, wow, I wish I could go. I really do. I wish I could be in 3 places at once and not miss any of these, because if you have a chance, those who are listening, to go to author events, go and support them. I always encourage that. It is always, you just don't know who you're going to meet, and the audience is filled with book lovers, and titles will go flying around, and you will have some of the most interesting conversations with the author that you get to meet and with the readers that are sitting beside you. I just think that it is such a privilege and a treat to have authors come to your town to read, to sign, and to celebrate reading and book giving, and they're the best gifts and all of that. And I always encourage people to support them and to go to as many events as possible. And
I totally
please,
agree.
Right?
In fact,
I
one
love
of
it.
my favorite things to do in the city is go to the Free Library of Philadelphia Author Series. But
It's a great library.
I just had a lunch party at someone's house, and a woman came up to me and said, and I gave a talk about the book, and she came up just with glowing eyes afterwards and said, "I've never heard an author talk," and that was incredible. That was
Wow.
amazing. I'm so inspired. This is fascinating. And I was like, yes, you should go to more author events. I think if you want just your creativity inspired,
It's so inspiring, and
yeah.
I guarantee you there are conversations that are sparked, and there are books that you might not have thought of where people are talking about their favorites because you're in this space, you're looking around, and people will grab books off the shelves and say, oh, I haven't thought about this book. And the conversation is always so rich. There's just nothing like book people getting together. And I can imagine at yours, and I hope when you're at Point Street you'll talk a little bit about this author's note and some of the research. I don't know if you'll get a chance to come to Women and Infants. We should talk about that also. There are so many connections and so many groups that will find this book inspiring, and maybe Reese Witherspoon, right? Don't you think she could produce this movie?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
so.
That sounds good to me.
I think so. A little Scarlett Johansson maybe in this one.
Yeah, those are on my list for sure.
Okay, because this is what I'm thinking. I'm really like plotting this out.
Anybody who could do it, I'd be anybody who could do it well, I'd be thrilled.
We'll have to be. And the cover. Now, who did this cover art? And what is this painting? Must be or.
It's a painting that is dated 1906, which was the first time it was exhibited, but it is probably from the early 1880s, which is when the book is set.
Sure.
It is by an American painter named Gary Melchers, and the painting is at the Art Institute of Chicago, and he was living in Holland at the time. He's an American painter. He was living in Holland and painted this woman, which is kind of cool because Lilli de Jong is originally from the Netherlands. Her family is from the Netherlands. Few hundred years back, and the baby has red hair just like her baby. I was pretty amazed with it.
It's gorgeous. I mean, it's haunting and heartbreaking at once. Looking
it's
at
actually
this.
The book designer Michael J. Windsor darkened the painting quite a bit around the figures. It's actually a lot lighter in reality.
That's okay, because I wonder, right, if I saw it I would say, wait a minute, why does this look familiar? But it is, as it should be. It is a haunting, seriously mood. The cover's got this moody. Lily's got this fierce look in her eye. This is my child, and you will, she's just holding on to this baby. It's perfect cover. It almost would seem that you found the painting and decided to write a story around it. So I just love it, and I'm thrilled to talk to you, and I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yes.
And it's Lilli de Jong, Janet Benton, janetbentonauthor.com. Find her on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and if she's near where you're going to be, go see her.
Yes,
and
I'd
do
love
not
to meet
miss.
You.
Yeah, she'd love to meet you, and do not miss this gorgeous book. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon, Janet.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Robin.